2014, Kris Kremers and Lisanne Froon left their hostel and walked into a jungle in Panama on April 1, 2014. With a camera, a phone, and a plan to be back before dark, they never made it. Weeks later, their belongings were found deep in the jungle. Their camera still worked, their phones still had battery logs, and what they left behind didn't explain what happened. It made it worse. Kris and Lisanne were born and raised in Amersfoort, Utrecht, in Netherlands. Both were in their early 20s. Kris was 21 years old, Lisanne was 22 years old. They had recently graduated, Lisanne with a degree in applied sciences and Kris in cultural social education. Lisanne had completed her degree in applied psychology at Deventer. Kremers was pursuing cultural social education at Utrecht University with a focus on arts. They weren't thrill seekers, chasing adrenaline. They were close friends with a plan, and that plan had brought them to Central America. A few weeks before leaving for Panama, Froon moved in with Kremers in a dorm room in Amersfoort. They worked together at a cafe called in Den Kleinen Hap. For 6 months, they saved money. They planned every detail of their trip to Panama, a combination of vacation and service work. They spent time hiking and touring while volunteering with local children, teaching arts and crafts, and learning Spanish. They had a schedule, a host family, a volunteer commitment waiting for them, and that's exactly why what happened next makes no sense. Kremers and Froon arrived in Panama on March 15, 2014. They spent 2 weeks touring the country before arriving in Bukit Cherokee on March 29. They moved in with a local family ready to spend a month volunteering with the children. Bukit is a small town in Cherokee province, huddled in highlands near the Barrow volcano. It draws hikers, birdwatchers, and volunteers from around the world. It is considered welcoming, relatively safe by Central American standards. The women were set to volunteer at school, but classes hadn't started yet. They had an unexpected couple of days free to explore the area, so they decided to hike at the El Pianista Trail. It is well-established 2.5-mile hike with a 1923-foot elevation gain leading to stunning overlook of rolling jungle hills. Not extreme for experienced hikers, a recognized tourist route with a clear path to a viewpoint and a relatively well-known loop. They posted on Facebook about their plans to walk around the area. According to the reports, they were seen enjoying brunch with 2 young Dutch men before setting out on the trail. Everything was normal, but they never came back. On the April 1st, around 11 a.m., they went hiking near the clouded forest surrounding the Barrow volcano on the Pianista Trail, not far from Bukit. Some sources say they took a dog with them, one that belonged to the owners of the Pianista restaurant. Some of the things they had with them were shirts, jeans and boots, 2 bottles of water, sunglasses, a camera with a green light that could be used as a flashlight, a camera cover, a keychain, a key, an insurance card, their phones which had lights. That's it. No guide, no satellite communication device, no emergency flares, no flashlight beyond their phones. By later standards, they were unprepared for anything that could go wrong, and things did go wrong. There was no indication of anything unusual in the images taken on April 1. The photos show the girls following a route near a continental divide overlook, venturing into some wilderness hours before their first attempt to contact emergency services. Camera captures them enjoying the hike, smiling, exploring. Nothing in those images signals danger or stress. They looked exactly like 2 friends on a day out in the jungle. But about 6 hours after they set off, everything changed. The phone records revealed that just a few hours after they started their hike, the first distress call was placed. First from Kris's iPhone at 4:39 p.m., then shortly after from Lisanne's Samsung Galaxy at 4:51 p.m. Something happened between their cheerful summit photos and those first 112 calls. A fall, a wrong turn, an encounter, whatever it was triggered an immediate and urgent attempt to call for help. But the problem was due to the dense jungle, neither of those first attempts went through. Out of all 77 calls eventually made, only one managed to make contact, and it broke up after just 2 seconds. The jungle canopy killed their signal. Every call dropped. On the morning of April 2nd, the woman missed an opportunity with a local guide. That was the first external signal that something was wrong. They didn't come home. They didn't show up where they said they would. On April 6th, their parents arrived in Panama along with police, dog units, the detectives from Netherlands to conduct a full-scale search of the forest for 10 days. The parents offered a $30,000 reward for any information leading to the whereabouts of the girls. The response was real, but it was already late. 5 days had passed between the missed appointment and the arrival of the organized search team. In dense jungle with unpredictable weather and no GPS signal, 5 days is an enormous gap. There was heavy criticism of search delays, a late start, and poor coordination between Panamanian and Dutch police. Meanwhile, the phones kept running. The phones had remained in service for almost 10 days after the woman disappeared. Over just 4 days, 77 attempts of separate phone calls to the police had been made, both via 112, the emergency numbers in Netherlands, and 911, the emergency number in Panama. For 77 attempts over 4 days, at least one of them or both was alive, conscious, and still trying. They weren't giving up. They were fighting to reach someone. On April 4, Froon's phone battery became exhausted after 5 a.m. and was never used again. Kris's phone would not make any more calls either, but it was irregularly turned on to search for reception. Between April 5 and 11, the phone was turned on multiple times, but without ever entering the correct PIN code again. Either no PIN or wrong PIN was entered. On April 3 at 3:59 p.m., Kris's phone was turned on and contact Miriam was opened in WhatsApp, the landlady of the house where the girls were staying. Whoever had the phone on April 3, likely Kris, was not just dialing randomly. She was trying to reach a specific person she trusted, someone she knew would come looking. On April 11, the phone was turned on at 10:51 a.m. and was turned off for the last time at 11:56 a.m. That was the last confirmed sign of life from either phone. The phones tell one story, the camera tells another. Froon had a Canon PowerShot SX270 HS model, which contained numerous photos, many from the period leading up to the day of their disappearance. These were standard vacation photos that two women would take while traveling. There were shots of them exploring the jungle on April 1, which appeared to show that all is well. Then the camera goes dark for a week. On April 8, 90 flash photos were taken between 7 to 10 p.m., apparently deep in the jungle and in near complete darkness. A few photos show they were possibly near a river or ravine. Some show a twig with plastic bags on the top of a rock. Other shows what looks like a backpack strap and a mirror on another rock. Another photo shows the back of Kris's head. Why take 90 photos at night in near darkness? The most grounded explanation people have offered in that is that they were using camera flash as a signaling device, trying to catch the attention of anyone who might be in the jungle. Kris and Lisanne were most likely in a river or a stream, because the pictures seemed to lead to that. In that kind of area, they wouldn't easily be seen. The shots were tilted, not directly toward the sky, but at a side inclination. One of the night photos shows what looks like a Pringles lid, suggesting that they may have had snacks. There may have been a tourist map of Phuket as well, since papers in another night photo resembles a map seen earlier in their pictures. And then there is a missing photo. A critical discovery was made in the camera data, a missing shot. Photo 508 shows Kris crossing a stream with what investigators describe as a clearly frightened expression. Photo 510 is the first in the series of mysterious nightmare photos taken a week later. Photo 509, which would have been taken between these two, was missing. Technical examination showed the photo was deleted neither manually nor due to system error. According to analysis, the only explanation for such deletion would be external interference using specialized equipment. What was in photo 509? That was the question. That still is. Nobody knows. Whatever it captured, the moment everything changed, a face, a location, something that identified a threat, it was removed. The search teams scoured the jungle for 10 days after the families arrived. Then the search wound down. Days turned to weeks. After 10 weeks, there was still no signs of either Kremers or Froon. Then on June 14, a local woman turned in Froon's blue backpack, which she reported finding by a riverbank near her village of Alto Romero in Bocas del Toro province. The backpack contained 2 pairs of sunglasses, $88 in cash, Froon's insurance card, a water bottle, Froon's camera, 2 bras, and the woman's phones, all in good condition. The backpack backpack contents were dry and undamaged, and the bag looked in good condition despite supposedly being in the jungle or river for weeks. The finder said she was sure that the bag was not in the location the day before. Heavy rain had hit the area in prior few weeks, so it would be expected that everything would be soaked through, suggesting it may have been placed there before its discovery by persons unknown. Lisanne's asthma inhaler was not among the belongings recovered. Investigators determined that the belongings had 34 different fingerprints, with 13 on the bag itself. DNA was also detected on the backpack contents, but none of it led to any serious leads for police. Bocas del Toro province, where the backpack turned up, is on the other side of the continental divide from Buque and El Pianista tribe. That's not a short distance. The fact that the bag ended up there, dry and with all $88 in cash still inside, is one of the most debated anomalies in the entire case. The former prosecutor in the case said that hypotheses related to kidnapping or homicide were ruled out when all their belongings were found intact, including money, glasses, and underwear. But that argument cut both ways. The fact that nothing of financial value was taken doesn't automatically rule out other forms of crime. The discovery of backpack led to new searches along the Kudubri River. Kris's denim shorts were found atop a rock on the opposite bank of a river, a few kilometers from where Froon's backpack had been discovered. Kris's shorts were zipped and neatly folded on the rock. 2 months later, closer to where the backpack was discovered, a pelvis and a boot with the foot inside were found. Soon after, at least 33 widely scattered bones were discovered along the same riverbank. DNA testing confirmed they belonged to Kremers and Froon. In total, only 10% of Froon's bones and 5% of Kremers' bones were ever found. Dutch forensic teams highlighted rugged terrain, 30 to 40 meter cliffs, and swift river currents as factors that might explain both the insufficiency and conditions of the remains. The explanation is plausible in theory, but it doesn't resolve every anomaly in the physical evidence. While parts of Froon's remains still retained some skin, Kremers' bones appeared bleached with high phosphorus levels that did not match local soil conditions. Natural bleaching from sun exposure, chemical runoff, or extended water immersion can whiten bone, but the phosphorus discrepancy remains an open question for forensic analysis. A roll-up ball of skin from Lisanne's shin was also located on August 29, 2014. The forensic pathologist found that the skin was still in early stage of decomposition, even containing maggots. In contrast with Kris's fully bleached and clean bones, the pathologist also found that the bone marrow in Lisanne's femur and tibia bones proved dry and undecomposed. The bone marrow was intact and unaltered. The forensic team speculated that someone may have manipulated the piece of skin. And then there is the bone surface itself. The Panamanian forensic anthropologist later claimed that under magnification, saying that there are no visible scratches of any kind on the bones, neither of natural nor cultural origin. No animal bite marks, no cut marks, no trauma signatures visible on any of the recovered bone surfaces. The absence of marks doesn't prove anything definitive in either direction. Panamanian authorities initially classified the case as homicide, then abduction. By March 2015, however, it was formally closed with the conclusion that both women perished in a hiking accident. The investigation's own categorization changed 3 times, and the final landing point, accident, is the one that has drawn the most disbelief, largely because the shift from homicide to accident happened without any new evidence that definitively supported the accident theory. The prosecutor in the case said that her theory was that the young woman got lost after making the foolish decision to venture down a challenging trail without the help or a guide. According to the former prosecutor, the theories related to kidnapping or homicide were ruled out when all their belongings were found intact. Dutch senior forensic expert Frank van de Goot, head of the Dutch research team, concluded saying that considering geographical and social conditions alongside the forensic data, crime in the form of robbery, assault, or abduction is highly unlikely. But the Dutch authors who dug deepest into the full police file reached a more nuanced position. Dutch authors Marja West and Jurgen Sonneren, who wrote Lost in the Jungle, believes the girls died after an accident, but they admit there are a lot of unknowns. Snoren said that they don't know if anybody was involved. They cannot exclude that. They believed that the most likely explanation is that they had had an accident, but it's not 100%. Heavy criticism persists. The investigation was seen as formal. Evidence could have been mishandled. The backpack was poorly analyzed. The locals were barely questioned. Researchers who have traveled to Phuket and walked the trail, including independent investigator Romain Casalta, have reportedly pointed out the local knowledge was largely untapped resource throughout the investigation. But in March 2015, less than a year after the two women disappeared, 34-year-old Leonardo Arturo Gonzalez, who worked as a taxi driver and who had taken them to El Pianista from Phuket, mysteriously drowned. He had taken 3 foreigners and a guide to the tourist sector of Gualaka to see the Los Canguilones spa. Residents in the area spotted a body floating in the Asti River, which was later identified as Gonzalez. Apparently, Gonzalez was waiting for the tourists who were bathing in the area and somehow fell into the river. Whether his death was connected to the girl's case has never been established. It is mentioned in the case literature as a coincidence that investigators noted but could not link. His drowning was ruled accidental. This case did not go cold in any meaningful way. 12 years have passed since the two young women never returned. Since then, the case has generated interest from many quarters. In April 2025, an updated edition of the book Still Lost in Panama by journalists Christine and Annette Nanner was released. The authors gained access to complete investigation files from Panamanian and Dutch authorities, materials that had been unavailable to the public for more than 10 years. Christine stated that this is not the behavior of people lost in jungles. This indicates third-party involvement. Annette spent 5 months in Phuket studying the Pianista trial, and her key conclusion was that if the girls truly got lost, they would definitely have been found alive. Summer 2025 brought a new technical evidence that could completely change the understanding of what happened. The examination focused on the digital data from both the phones and the camera. The missing photo 509 sits at the center of that analysis. The deleted photo remains the most discussed element. Some insist it was erased by a third party to hide the evidence. Others believed it was a technical error or deleted by Lisanne herself. What's undeniable is that this missing image might have explained a great deal. The relatives of Kremers and Froon have stood by the official conclusion of a tragic accident, finding some measure of closure even as the public's fascination continues. The families, while devastated, reportedly found some relief in resolution and laid Lisanne and Kris to rest in Netherlands. A small memorial was established at the Mirador along the El Pianista trial. In the decades since they set foot on the trial, no definitive explanation has emerged. Panamanian authorities still do not classify the case as a murder. There is no direct evidence. However, documentaries and researchers raise the possibility of human involvement, a view echoed by some experts. 12 years later, the case continues to generate debate, not because people are obsessed with mystery for its own sake, but because the evidence generally does not revolve cleanly in any direction, and two young women with their whole lives ahead of them deserve more than an open file and a trail marker. That is all for today's case. If you like the content, if you like the analysis, do subscribe to the channel. I will see you in next case. Until then, goodbye and good night.